Forget New Year, New You. This season is about slowing down, locking the doors, and cozying up at home with the one you really want to do nothing with. Your dog. After the holiday chaos, those quiet nights with a blanket, a podcast, and your pup feel like the reset you actually need. Ollie helps make those moments easier with fresh protein-packed meals made from real human-grade ingredients, so your dog can enjoy some quality comfort food too. Choose from 5 recipes and get a personalized plan for your dog's needs. Meals arrive perfectly proportioned with a scoop and storage container, so serving is fast and mess-free. And with Ollie's in-app on-demand health screenings, supporting your dog is easy, ensuring more cuddles for many years to come. Visit ollie.com/truecrime and use code TRUECRIME for 60% off your first box.
A thick plume of smoke was coming out of Valley Pawnbrokers in Whitwell, Tennessee, around 5 p.m. on May 17, 2016. Volunteer firefighter Chief Todd Brown and his crew loaded up their fire engine and were on the scene within 3 minutes of receiving the call.
When we arrived, there was a gray and brown smoke coming out the eaves. Not a lot of smoke, but it was noticeable.
Chief Brown felt heat coming from the building, but didn't see flames. The firefighters managed to open the front doors, which were locked, and go inside.
The flame was contained to just the corner area behind the counter, right around in the safe area, what I would call the office area where the desk and all that was where it was contained to.
Firefighters worked to extinguish the flames in the corner area of the building, but smoke was filling the pawn shop, and so they had to get out. They went around the building to try to get better ventilation.
At that time, we were able to get the back door open. We went ahead and took the rest of the glass out of the front windows, ventilated the smoke. When my guys went back in, they found the body. They came out and got me. I went in and verified that there was a victim. And at that point, I had everybody clear out.
Chief Brown immediately called law enforcement when he saw there was a deceased person inside the pawn shop. Tennessee State Fire Marshal Special Agent Daniel Foster arrived on scene to investigate with his canine partner, Leo.
Leo had a change of behavior in several areas in the scene, particularly, though, we focused around the body.
And what was his behavior around the body?
The change of behavior for Leo is that once he has that change of behavior, which is he will sit, that lets me know that he's in what we call the scent cone. And once he does that, I'll ask him to show me, because I wanted to be a little more specific about where he is telling me there's some evidence for me to collect. And he will kind of alert with his snout by pointing or dipping his head, at least, in the area that I should take my sample from.
Canine Leo was indicating for the presence of possible accelerants around the location of the body. This fire was not an accident. It was arson. Investigators used crime scene tape to set up a perimeter around the building while crews shut down Highway 28. Tennessee Bureau of Investigation, or TBI, Special Agent Kenneth Mark Wilson conducted a preliminary walkthrough around 6:45 p.m.
While inside the business and doing my crime scene video, noticed large amounts of what appeared to be blood on the filing cabinet. Kind of panned around and observed what appeared also to be blood on the store counter and a receipt book. At that point in time, I decided to discontinue the crime scene processing, back out, and call for additional help from our violent crimes response team.
Agent Wilson determined that the victim was the store's owner, 72-year-old Jerry Ridge. As he conducted his walkthrough, he noticed the store was packed with different items for sale. But most of the items, although covered in soot, were untouched by the fire. The burnt area was primarily contained to the area directly around the body. TBI sent 6 members of the violent crimes team to take a closer look at the damage. Next to a knocked-over trash can was an item that immediately caught TBI Special Agent Laura Hodges' eye.
There are a pair of purple latex gloves, and it appears to have RBS, what we call reddish-brown stain, or blood, but we call it a reddish-brown stain because it's not been tested to see if it is blood. And that is what marker 15 is marking.
Would that purple glove lead to the identity of the killer? This is Jillian, and you are listening to Court Junkie, episode 134. For hours, investigators attempted to sift through soot and burnt items at the Valley Pawn Shop. The electricity was out, and due to the darkness of the night, the work was slow-moving. Agent Darby Hutchinson, an arson investigator on the TBI Violent Crimes Response Team, focused her efforts on the area around the victim's body that had been damaged by the fire.
All areas that we saw that things that were charred and different smoke patterns, fire patterns, all went back to him. Specifically, above his head, there was a fluorescent light that was heavily damaged by heat. We could see that the light fixtures on either side of him were less damaged. From where he lay, when we looked to the back of his head, starting at the back of his head and moving around to the left, there was a large safe, a metal safe, that had a visible V pattern, which is a smoke pattern, and we could see that originated from him. The V started with him and worked its way out toward the safe. To his left, there was a wooden table that had charring. Again, that charring came from the side of Mr. Ridge's body. It was sitting very close to him. To his right, there was a metal and wood composite, kind of like an office desk, the metal desks. The wood top had charring from the bottom up, which is again from the area of the floor around Mr. Ridge. The metal of that desk had been annealed, which simply means it was twisted due to heat, exposure to heat. And those things came from the ground level, from low, again, from around his body.
Agent Hutchinson noted it would have taken a significant amount of heat to cause the twisting of the metal on the desk. She also noted that Jerry Ridge's body suffered third-degree burns.
He was severely damaged from the fire on his front side. There was not very much skin or tissue left on his face, torso, his legs. However, the back side of his body, once we examined him and rolled him over, he did still have fleshy tissue. There was some protected clothing he was laying on, and there was blood.
This indicated to her that Jerry had been burned on the front side of his body. Agent Hutchinson began to look for possible causes of the fire that would have made it accidental. She didn't see anything on his body or in the immediate area surrounding it. She also had crews remove an electrical outlet from behind his desk. They determined there was no electrical malfunction. By the way Jerry's body was burned, it appeared to Agent Hutchinson that an accelerant could have been used. Canine Leo's observations verified this theory.
Based on your training and experience and your observations there at the scene, were you able to make a conclusion as to the nature of that fire?
Yes, ma'am.
And what was that?
We concluded that was an intentionally set fire.
Jerry Ridge largely ran the Valley Pawn Shop on his own and had for about 10 years. Before the pawn shop, he worked as a mail carrier for the United States Postal Service for 40 years. When word broke in the small town of Whitwell that there was a fire at the shop, Jerry's friends and family worried about his well-being. Marion County Sheriff's Department initially told them a body was found in the fire. Friends worried that was likely Jerry. Detective Matt Blancett knew anyone in this small town could be a suspect. As he walked through the pawn shop turned crime scene, he noticed what appeared to be a large amount of blood around a filing cabinet. He followed the trail and saw blood smeared on the countertop. He took a closer look and saw a receipt book.
The last receipt that appeared in the book was made out to Miss Kilgore and in the amount of $4,000. And that was the last receipt. Did it have
her first name on there?
It did. It stated Angela Kilgore.
Okay. And was this significant to you?
I felt that it was, just in the manner how the book was laying there with what appeared to be blood all over it, and that was the last receipt written in a large amount.
A receipt dated for that same day for $4,000 worth of saddles was made out to a woman named Angela Kilgore. Agents collected DNA swabs from the blood on the receipt book, along with swabs from different areas throughout the store. They also dusted for fingerprints and looked for other items of possible evidence. But with the store so packed with goods, it was hard to tell if anything was missing. In all, 100 items were submitted to the state's crime lab. In the small town of Whitwell, Tennessee, everyone knows everyone. And everyone needing to fill up their car usually stops at the family-owned Raceway. That's why the chief of police asked convenience store owner Jimmy Rogers to keep an eye out for Angela Kilgore. Around 9 p.m., she drove up in her red truck.
She came in and she walked over. She kind of looked around and walked over to me and she said, "What's going on at the road?"
What did she tell her?
I said, "There's a fire."
And where it was?
I think I said, "Yeah, there's a fire at the pawn shop."
And what did she say about that?
She said, "Oh, really?" And I said, "Yeah." I said, I think he may be in it." And she said, "Oh, really?" And then she said, "I was just up there." And I said, "I know."
Angela said she had been in the pawn shop earlier that day. She told Jimmy she was there for about an hour to buy a few things. She even invited him out to her truck to show him her receipt. Once he saw the receipt, he told her he needed to step away to figure out what was going on. When he did, he called the town's chief of police.
There was a lot going on in the background. I could tell it was really loud, and I said, "I've got the red truck here." I said, do you want to talk? Do you want them to come up there, or do you want to come down to the store?" And I could tell he was like kind of talking going on, and then he said, "What?" And I said, "The red truck. She's standing in front of me. What do you want me to do?" And he said, "She's there?" And I said, "Yeah." And he said, "Blow her off." And I said, "What?" And he said, "Well, they're still working on evidence and stuff, so we don't need to talk to her right now." And I said, "Okay."
So she left?
Yeah, I told her that it must have been a mistake, or I thought they needed to talk to her, and they may not right now or whatever, but I told her that, they'd want to talk to her because they thought she was one of the last ones there, which led to that, or telling me that earlier.
Jimmy was confused by the chief telling him to blow her off. But nonetheless, she left and he carried on about his business. 2 hours later, she came back. This time, she went straight into the bathroom.
She had a bandage on her hand or finger. We could see fresh white bandaging.
Did you see any blood?
Mm-hmm. Just blood coming through it.
You can see blood coming through it?
And that's where, it caught our attention.
Sure.
When she walked in.
Jimmy called the police again, and this time they came to the gas station. About 20 minutes later, Angela came out of the bathroom and spoke with the officers.
We spoke with Miss Kilgore and asked her to, she would speak with us concerning this investigation and ask her to come down to the Whitwell Police Department.
And did she do that?
Yes, she did.
She drove her own vehicle, is that right?
That is correct.
Angela agreed to go to the police station for questioning. Officers noticed she had a slash on her left hand and blood coming out of a bandage on her right hand. But she was cooperative, and without any evidence tying her to the crime, she was free to go. When the Violent Crimes Response Team got back to the lab, they began processing the items taken from the shop. Among the items was a knife that had a fingerprint on it. The fingerprint was entered into a national database. Investigators instantly got a hit. A man with a long criminal history who lived nearby was a match to the knife in the pawn shop. Investigators now zeroed in on him as their possible suspect. Court records showed he was on probation and was brought in for questioning. Their first question for the man? Where was he at the time of the fire? The man's response? With his probation officer. Investigators immediately called his probation officer, Stephen Collins, to verify that claim.
It was around about 5 o'clock.
And did he show up at your location in Jacksboro?
He did.
And What time was he supposed to be there for the meeting?
He was supposed to originally be there probably early afternoon. Probably, I don't know the exact time, but I'd say probably 2 or so.
And that's close to 5 o'clock, and being a good state employee, were you ready to go home?
I was definitely ready to go home.
And but you actually physically talked to him that afternoon?
I did.
The meeting was in Jacksboro, Tennessee, about 2.5 hours away from Whitwell. And Jacksboro is in Eastern Time, so the meeting would have been at 4 p.m. Central. Based on this timeline, Agent Wilson determined that it would have been impossible for the man to have been at the pawn shop at the time of the fire. Now, Agent Wilson refocused his attention back on Angela Kilgore. On May 19th, he watched as she drove around in her red Chevy truck. But missing from the back was a distinctive Confederate flag license plate he had noticed just 2 days prior. And the most curious thing was a bag found in her truck, loaded with 15 firearms. A check on her records revealed a prior conviction and one that prevented her from owning or possessing guns. In 2004, Angela had been arrested for an attempted bank robbery. According to court records, she had gone into a bank and demanded $500,000 in cash. The bank's vice president apparently told her that they didn't have that kind of money available, but offered $25,000 and the rest via check if she filled out the necessary loan paperwork. Angela went along with it, records show, and while she filled out her information, police showed up to arrest her. Still, without any forensic evidence back from the lab, the police were unable to connect her to this murder. They were able, however, to take her into custody for violating the conditions of her past release for a federal crime. Months went by and no one was charged in Jerry Ridge's death. The town of Whitwell grew restless and wanted answers for this seemingly unexplained tragedy. The sheriff's office said they had zeroed in on one person of interest, but wouldn't provide any names. Then, in October, the grand jury impaneled in Jerry Ridge's death came back with their true bill: 1 count of first-degree murder, 1 count of felony murder, 1 count of especially aggravated robbery, 1 count of employing a firearm during the commission of a dangerous felony, 1 count of aggravated arson, 1 count of theft, and 1 count of unlawful possession of a firearm by a felon. The Tennessee Bureau of Investigation said Angela Kilgore robbed the pawn shop, killed its owner, and set fire to the business in an attempt to cover up the crime. She entered a not guilty plea and maintained her innocence. Was this an open and shut case, or would her defense have another explanation for any evidence presented against her? In August 2018, Angela Kilgore went to trial. Prosecutors told the jury that Jerry Ridge obviously wouldn't be there to testify, but he would be communicating to them through DNA found at the crime scene, weapons, clothing, and a purple glove. Angela's defense reminded the jury that she's innocent until proven guilty. Assistant Public Defender Norm Lipton said there's 2 sides to every coin, and there are 2 sides to this coin.
There was a fire, indisputable. Mr. Ridge is deceased, indisputable. When Miss Kilgore left the premises that day, he was alive and well. Okay. There's a lot of talk about DNA evidence and stuff like that, or there will be. We'd ask that you wait till the end of the case, because you'll find that DNA can be confusing, and just because it's DNA doesn't necessarily mean my client did the crime.
Lipton said he would provide explanations for the DNA and urged them to pay attention to the unusual things that occurred during the investigation. But the bottom line, according to Lipton, Jerry Ridge was alive and well when Angela left the shop. The state called Whitwell resident and retired occupational health nurse Dale Watts to the stand. Dale said she was in the store in the afternoon on May 17th to make a payment on behalf of her grandson. While there, she recognized Angela. But Dale noticed Angela was wearing something unusual.
Purple gloves.
Were they the nitrile gloves? Am I saying that right?
Yes.
And
they appeared to be. They were, because it was what I used in my clinic. They appeared to be.
They appeared to be gloves like you would have used as a nurse.
Yes.
And that strike you as unusual.
Yes.
Did you ask her about it?
Yes.
And what did Miss Kilgore tell you?
She told me that she had poison oak on her hands. The doctor had given her some medicine and told her to wear the gloves over it.
Had you ever heard of that treatment for poison oak?
No.
The defense objected to Dale Watts' assessment that having gloves on her hands was not a treatment for poison oak. Dale explained that from her work as a nurse, she knew poison oak should be dried out to heal. Having gloves on would keep it moist. Dale's grandson was interested in a dog in Angela's red truck, so they went out to look at it. Dale and her grandson left around 3:30 p.m. Angela was still there. On cross, the defense asked if anything seemed unusual while they were in the store.
Did you ask the question? Did you talk to Miss Angela about the gloves in front of Mr. Rich?
Yes.
During the entire time, did Mr. Ridge seem fearful or upset or anything like that?
No.
Okay. In other words, normal everyday conversation.
Yes.
And when you went out and your grandson looked at the puppy, right?
Yes.
And anything appear unusual then?
No.
She appear nervous or anything like that?
No.
She showed the dog to your grandson, friendly like that?
Yes.
The defense maintained Angela never showed any signs of someone who had committed an arson and murder. Not before the time of the fire, and not after, while she was in the gas station convenience store.
She even comes back to the store later that day.
Yes, sir.
Or, I'm sorry, later that evening.
Yeah.
2 hours later, roughly?
Approximately.
Hour and a half, 2 hours?
Yeah.
Calm demeanor, just a normal, everyday Angela Kilgore, correct?
Yeah.
You call and tell her maybe the police want her?
They called back.
Okay.
Said that they had enough evidence that they were now looking for.
Okay. But they didn't, so at 9 o'clock they didn't have the evidence, but then later they told you they did, correct?
They were still gathering it now and then they said, yes, they definitely wanted to talk to her later on in the second conversation.
So you made the phone call to Rodney Easterly, and she didn't run.
She was in the bathroom.
After Angela left to go to the police station, detectives asked Jimmy Rogers to look in the bathroom to see if he could find keys. He never did. David Shape was married to one of Jerry Ridge's daughters for 25 years. After the fire, he helped go through the business to try to sort out the mess.
In your going through the business, did you find much cash inside the building?
Basically none.
And had you been in the business in times past?
Yes.
Are you familiar with your father-in-law's, would he have normally had cash in the business?
Yes.
And approximately how much cash would he normally maintain?
He would normally have somewhere between $5,000 and $10,000 in a safe there in the shop just to do business with.
Forensic pathologist Dr. Thomas Deering performed Jerry's autopsy. Dr. Deering said Jerry's body was so badly burned, some of his skin was gone and bone was damaged. He x-rayed Jerry and determined that he was shot in his right arm. But another bullet appeared on the x-ray. Investigators believe an unrelated stray bullet made its way into the body bag. Jerry had a knife wound in his neck, and Dr. Deering said he was stabbed in his jugular vein. This was a fatal wound, and Dr. Deering ruled his death a homicide. Jerry's body had normal CO2 levels and did not have any soot in his lungs. Dr. Deering determined he was deceased before he was burned. When detectives questioned Angela, they noticed her boots had red stains on them. She was wearing those same boots when she was arrested. A test revealed the blood was Jerry's. A shirt found in the front seat of her car had a mixture of her blood and Jerry's. And in a bag in the truck were 15 firearms estimated to be worth more than $4,000. Investigators compared the firearms to the logbook at the pawn shop and determined they were all from Valley Pawn Brokers. 3 of the guns had a suspicious red stain on them. A lab report determined there was a mixture of Angela's DNA and Jerry's DNA on the guns. None of the weapons were a match to the bullet recovered from Jerry's body, however, and a gunshot residue test conducted on Angela was negative. On cross, the defense asked the lead investigator about how the gun matching that bullet was never recovered.
At some point in time, did you receive information about another gun in the pawn shop that you sent to the crime lab?
We received information from the forensic scientist, Laura Hodge, concerning, and also from the type of bullet that was recovered from the victim. After the examination was conducted by the forensic scientist, we were notified that it was the bullet matched a .25 caliber type handgun, and we did submit another .25 caliber handgun to the lab.
Where'd you get it from?
Mr. Sharp.
When did you get it?
I'll have to refer to my notes. Give me just a second. This item was collected from Mr. Sharp on or about the 29th of August of 2016.
And that was recovered from the pawn shop, correct?
Yes, sir.
Were you aware that there were weapons found in a van outside the pawn shop?
Yes, sir.
Can you describe those weapons for the jury?
I can't. No, sir.
Well, they were found that night, weren't they?
I didn't find them, no, sir.
Law enforcement found them, correct?
I knew there were weapons inside the vehicle. I'd heard. We did not collect those.
Okay. Do you know what kind of van?
No, sir, I don't recall.
When Angela was booked into jail, she removed all of the items in her pocket. She had a carbon copy of the receipt from the pawn shop, along with 2 pocket knives. One was a case-style folding knife that had both Angela's and Jerry's DNA on it. The other had a longer switchblade.
When you got it and got it from her, did you think that was a murder weapon?
Initially, yes, sir, I did.
Okay. And did you think the case knife was a murder weapon?
Not initially, no, sir.
Okay. And the lock blade knife came back from forensic saying they didn't have anything, correct? On the knife.
That is correct.
And then the case knife came back from forensics with stuff on it, correct? And when I say stuff, forensically speaking, it came back with blood stains and other things, correct?
Yes, sir. He came back with Mr. Ridge's DNA on it, as well as Ms. Kilgore's, if I do recall.
Okay. And then you kind of realized that maybe that was a murder weapon.
Appears so, yes, sir.
The state continued to enter into evidence more items they say conclusively linked Angela to the arson and murder. A can of Zippo lighter fluid was found at the pawn shop with red stains on it. The crime lab processed the can and found Jerry's DNA was on the top and back of it. Angela was a major contributor as well. One of the stains was a mixture for both of their DNAs. Agents secured a search warrant for Angela's home after her arrest and found saddles stacked up. They also found another similar can of Zippo lighter fluid. Remember the purple glove I mentioned earlier in this episode? The crime lab confirmed the blood covering it belonged to Jerry. There were so many other types of fluids on the glove that the lab was unable to determine if Angela's DNA was mixed in with it. But an analyst swabbed the inside of the glove where there was no blood. This time, there was a match to DNA consistent with Angela. Members of the jury saw the glove in crime scene photos. Photos taken later that day appeared to show more gloves at the scene. The defense made sure to point out this oddity. TBI special agents denied those gloves were theirs, claiming it went against protocol to leave gloves at the crime scene. Prosecutors, however, said it was consistent with the state fire marshal's procedures and asked Marshal Daniel Foster if he left the gloves behind.
When you all collect a sample, do you photograph where you collected it and leave your gloves next to that location?
Generally, we do.
What is the reason for that?
That is to show that you didn't cross-contaminate from one to the other. So you try to leave your gloves at each area that you took a sample.
Okay, and that's for your purposes. So gloves left around that scene would have been where you left your gloves where you collected debris.
That's correct.
On cross, the defense tried to point out more inconsistencies with the investigation. K-9 Leo indicated for the presence of accelerants, but was unable to say exactly how long the scent had been there.
How many different pairs of gloves did you leave at the crime scene?
I do not recall, but I know that we collected those 3 samples in the can, so I would say there's at least that amount from me. And then the Zippo lighter. So I would say at least, 8.
8 gloves, 4 pair?
Yes.
Have any idea where they are today?
Don't have a clue.
Okay. You didn't document how many pairs of gloves were there, correct?
No, sir.
The state then rested their case and the jury went on a recess. Angela briefly took to the witness stand and expressed she did not wish to testify in her defense. The jury was brought back in and the defense called their first witness, Agent Wilson. Agent Wilson was recalled to the stand by the defense to ask about the search of Angela's garage after her arrest. He explained that the saddles found were not taken into evidence. He also found a box of latex gloves and syringes.
And can you tell me what color those gloves are?
The blue.
Not purple, correct?
That is correct.
I have no further questions.
The defense entered into evidence a photo taken by investigators that appeared to show a box full of blue gloves in Angela's garage. The state declined to cross-examine. The defense next called a Whitwell resident who was driving by the pawn shop around the time of the fire, Ronald English.
I saw a red pickup backed up to the door. The door was closed, and that's all.
English said he noticed the red pickup truck was a Chevy. He's had 3 Chevys himself.
Can you tell us, do you have an idea as to what type of year that car was, that truck was?
Approximately an older model, say 05, somewhere in that area, with the rounded front end on it, with a large size pickup.
Angela's truck was a newer model Chevy. Lipton showed English a photo of it. English said the truck he saw was similar, but was an older model. English told the sheriff what he saw after the fire. Prosecutors pointed out that English was driving about 40 miles per hour and only had a quick look as he passed the pawn shop. The defense's final witness was Randy Mosier, who told the jury that he didn't want to be there. Mosier said he knew Jerry Ridge and had gone to school with Angela Kilgore. On May 17th, around 1:15 p.m., he went to the shop and left about 30 minutes later.
Then you saw Angie Kilgore?
Yes, sir.
Okay. What happened next? We just seen a red truck pull in and back up to the front door, and Angie come in, and I asked her why she had a pair of gloves on, and she said she had poison oak on her hands.
And what color were the gloves?
And the ones I seen was blue.
Mosier said Angela was wearing blue gloves, not purple ones. He said Angela and Jerry seemed fine, not anxious or uncomfortable. The defense rested and the court proceeded to closing arguments. Assistant District Attorney Sherry Shelton said that while Jerry Ridge couldn't be in court to tell the jury exactly what happened, the witnesses and evidence told that story.
Several things to consider about premeditation. Think about the location of the wounds to his body. There's a reason for the saying, go for somebody's jugular. They were really going for the jugular with that. That's exactly what she did. She severed his jugular. She shot him, struck him in the right arm, causing hemorrhaging, a very significant injury, as Dr. Deering told you. We don't know which one came first, but Ms. Kilgore wasn't sure the first one did the job, so she took an additional step to finish him off. And beyond that, as he lay there bleeding, dying, passed away, she set about the business of setting the fire. Setting the business on fire, setting his body on fire, left the bloody glove there because she never thought anybody would find it. Her intent was to burn the business up, so that wasn't going to be a problem. Thank goodness the fire department was right down the road and the officers were able to respond so that we have that evidence. We have that proof, and we have that part of the story to present to you.
In the defense's closing arguments, attorney Norm Lipton said there are a lot of things that just don't make sense in this case, what he called oddities. Lipton said these oddities prevent the state from reaching their burden of proof beyond a reasonable doubt.
They didn't call the violent crime response team for about 4 hours. 4 hours. You know, their name, Violent Crime Response Team, you know, they're the one who obviously should have been called, but it wasn't done. Who knows what happened in that crime scene before then? Firefighters went in. Now, they're doing their job. They're not thinking about protecting a crime scene. They're concerned about putting out a fire, as they should be, okay? But they have to track in stuff on their feet, on their hands. They're not thinking about protecting a crime scene, and rightly so. But nevertheless, they still have to bring in DNA evidence. And when I say DNA evidence, their own DNA, other people's DNA, they're tracking stuff in.
Lipton said the water they sprayed to put out the fire could have tampered with the crime scene. Among other oddities, Lipton pointed out, no one was keeping track of personal protective equipment left behind. A witness said he saw Angela wearing a blue glove, not a purple one, and Angela's DNA was missing from items taken during the search warrant of her home. And if Angela was in fact guilty, he asked, why didn't she run for the hills after the first police interview?
You saw the pictures. It's a big red truck. Where are you hiding with a big red truck? Did she hide? She got arrested at Foster Falls, 20 minutes away. How much did she hide? Why was she hiding? Who was she hiding from? She cooperated. She went voluntarily to the Whitwell Police Department to talk to them. You heard Darren Rogers. Nothing unusual about her. She talked, voluntarily went to the police, acting normal. You heard Mr. Mosier say she was acting normal in the store. Heard about Jerry Ridge's death or the fire in the pawn shop. She didn't run. She didn't say, oh, they're after me. She said, go ahead, call the police.
Lipton also pointed out the only fingerprint found at the crime scene was on a knife belonging to a convicted criminal. But on rebuttal, Assistant District Attorney Steve Strain said the knife didn't have any blood or DNA on it.
And Mr. Lipton suggests apparently that's the person we should have prosecuted. And think about me coming in here as an Assistant District Attorney and asking the good people of Marion County to convict somebody of murder when a state probation officer testifies under oath at the time of the homicide he was with me 2.5 hours away.
Prosecutor Strain said the defense was trying to distract them from all the DNA evidence linking the crime to their client. He said there's nothing confusing about the evidence.
Ladies and gentlemen, the proof in this case is in. She begins this trial with a presumption of innocence. We end this trial with proof beyond a reasonable doubt that this defendant, with premeditation, killed Jerry Ridge. That she killed him in the course of a robbery. That she robbed him, especially aggravated robbery. She used a weapon and she killed him. She burned his business. And she stole from him. Ladies and gentlemen, it is time for Angela Kilgore to pay the piper. We ask you to convict her on all counts.
The jury was sent out to deliberate. After just 45 minutes, they returned with their verdict.
In regard to count 1, charge of first-degree murder, we, the jury, find the defendant guilty of first-degree premeditated murder. On count 2, we, the jury, find the defendant guilty of first-degree felony murder. Count 3, we, the jury, find the defendant guilty of especially aggravated robbery. Count 5, we, the jury, find the defendant guilty of aggravated arson. And count 6, we, the jury, find the defendant guilty of theft of property valued at $2,500 or more, but less than $10,000.
Angela Kilgore was automatically sentenced to life in prison for first-degree murder. Based on Tennessee law, she's eligible for parole after 51 years. For experts at the Law and Crime Trial Network, the verdict was no surprise. What they were confused by was why the case went to trial to begin with. Without Jerry Ridge, the Valley Pawnbrokers was boarded up and the doors closed for good. And that's all for today's episode. As always, I'd love to hear your thoughts on this case. Do you think it was an open and shut case, or do you think Angela put on a good defense? Let me know by joining the conversation on Instagram @CourtJunkie, by tweeting me @CourtJunkiePod, or by emailing me at podcast@CourtJunkie.com. This episode was researched and written by Jennifer Tintner from the Law and Crime Trial Network. You can follow Jennifer on Twitter @JenniferTintner. Thanks again for listening. Until next time.